All right, very good. We will call the Cumberland County Finance meeting to order and begin with a roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Nieder?
Here.
Commissioner Fasci?
I'm here.
Commissioner Eichelberger?
I'm present.
Wonderful. I'll open it up to public comment. We have some guests in the room today, but they will be making a presentation. Is there anyone online, Lauren, for public comment?
No.
Okay, we'll move into the approval of the minutes of the May 8th meeting.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks. It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. We will begin with the first topic of discussion is a presentation by the Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority and an update.
Okay.
Hello, Tim. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Tim Edwards. I'm the Executive Director with the Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority, which includes Harrisburg International Airport. And Cumberland County obviously is one of the appointing authorities, one of the representatives on the airport board. So regularly, every 2-3 years, we like to take the opportunity to meet with the various appointing authorities, just to give an update on status of the airport operation, various projects that we have that are currently underway, give the membership an opportunity, the commissioners the opportunity to ask questions that they may have. So that's why we're here today. So I appreciate the opportunity to spend a couple minutes.
Tim, I appreciate you being here and I apologize. I know my one colleague got called away on a family emergency and the other individual was slated to be out of town on some previously scheduled holiday, but he's joining. And so being new to the board, I do appreciate your time. This will be very helpful for me.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think last time we did this was 2021, maybe, and it was virtual. So it was all done via Zoom or MS Teams, however we did it back then. So this is a good opportunity to meet in person. I just have a few slides, 5 or 6 slides that go over some of the aspects of the airport, but I wanted to start here and just reference the fact that the Airport Authority, we call it SARA, the Susquehanna Area Regional Airport Authority, is a multi-municipal authority that manages and oversees the operation, administration of Harrisburg International Airport, Capital City Airport, Capital City Executive Airport, which is in Fairview Town. Yes, Fairview Township, Gettysburg Regional Airport, and also Franklin County. So it's a 4 airport system: Capital City, Franklin County, and Gettysburg are GA airports. Harrisburg International, of course, is the commercial service airport with commercial activity and cargo activity. Under the Municipal Authorities Act, it is an independent entity governed by a board of directors. We have 3 board of directors that are appointed by Cumberland County. 2 of them are here today. We have Eric Hume, who is the vice chair of the Airport Authority, and Jim Helsel, who is the past chair of the Airport Authority. And I'll also mention that Eric Clancy is a past chair of the Airport Authority, going back to when we opened up the terminal building, which is now 20 years ago. So this will be our 20th anniversary in the new building.
A bit of history there.
Yeah. And I don't know, have you
Yes,
used Harrisburg
yes.
International?
Yes,
Okay, so
I
you're
have.
familiar with
I am.
the facility.
And the old one as well. The former hangar. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I'm glad that's gone.
Security.
So in addition to Cumberland County, we also have Dauphin County as a representative, has 3 representatives on the board. York County has 3 representatives on the Airport Authority board. City of Harrisburg has 2. City of York has 2. We also have 2 townships: Fairview Township, where Capital City Airport is located, and Lower Watara Township, where Harrisburg International is located. So altogether, that's 15 representatives from the various central Pennsylvania community that are members of the Airport Authority. This. Okay. I did want to mention, this talks about gratitude for partnership, the fact that getting a little bit into our economic activity or economic impact, the airport authority is actually financially self-sufficient. So we do not have the power to tax any of our local our surrounding communities. We're completely financial self-sufficient. We generate our own revenue through parking and through landing fees and through terminal building rents and other sources, concessions. So for operation purposes, we are totally independent. So we're very proud of that fact. We do, however, have partners that help us with regard to our infrastructure and capital program. So we have several multi-million-dollar projects that are we've completed or in the process of completing right now that have been provided. The funding has been provided by various sources, primarily the FAA. So we're part of the Airport Improvement Program, which is because of our commercial activity, gives us about $4 million a year that we can that we dedicate to airport improvements, whether it's runway work or cargo work or clearing obstructions. We also have worked with the PA National Guard and with regard to some of the projects on their area of the airport. The PennDOT Bureau of Transportation is one of our partners and provide a portion of the funding necessary for our capital program. The Department of Environmental Protection works with us very closely, and also the Department of Community and Economic Development. We've received several grants through that program for various projects on the airport. So altogether, over the past 5 years, federal and state investments in aviation for the Airport Authority has been $85 million. So it's been a significant investment in our capital program. I just wanted to note, the big opportunity for using the airport is commercial service, and we have considerable commercial service. We have 4 airlines providing daily nonstop service to 16 destinations and hundreds of connecting points. Primarily what we have a lot of service to Florida, we have a lot of service to leisure destinations, but we also have service to 8 gateway connecting hubs. So on American, on United, on Delta, you can connect one stop through Atlanta, through Detroit, through Chicago, through Charlotte, through Boston, through Dulles, through Dallas, to basically anywhere in the world. So that really makes us a true gateway to the world by having service on those network carriers to those gateway connecting hubs. So we're very proud of that. Also have service on Allegiant, which is our ultra low cost carrier, and that provides service to many destinations in Florida, including Orlando, Tampa, Sarasota, Punta Gorda, Fort Lauderdale. They also serve Myrtle Beach and serve Nashville, and they are adding service to Jacksonville. Later in June 14th, we'll have nonstop service on Allegiant to Jacksonville out of Harrisburg. So they're actually our second, as with regard to market share, they're our second biggest carrier behind American.
And that Jacksonville area is becoming much more popular as well.
We expect it's going to be a popular destination, and we'll see how it works out. And again, it starts next month, about a month from now. But we did have one failure. We lost Frontier. Their last day of operating out of Harrisburg was Monday, May 13th. So they discontinued service to Orlando, but we still have service to Orlando on Allegiant. So that covers that. But again, it's the connection to the international gateways, like Chicago and Philly and Dallas, that really set us apart.
Tim, were they only flying to Florida? Was Frontier only flying to Florida?
Yes, they had provided service in the past to Denver a few years back. seasonal, and they discontinued that. That really went away with COVID, and we weren't able to get it back. So they were only serving Orlando 2 to 3 times a week, so it was less than daily service. The other service I'm talking about, to Chicago and to Dallas and to Philly, that's all daily service. So, and sometimes multiple times a day. So there's ample opportunity for flying out of Harrisburg through those connecting hubs. Oh, and also wanted to mention FedEx and UPS, 2 additional airline partners processing more, nearly 96 million pounds of cargo each year, almost 100 million pounds of cargo each year. And we expect that's going to increase to almost 140 million pounds annually by 2032. And that's part of our cargo expansion project.
Can you put a frame of reference, 96 million pounds to what it was pre-COVID?
That hadn't really changed.
Really?
Yeah, and actually COVID, the result of COVID was more cargo activity as there was more e-commerce taking place. You know, people were staying home and they were shopping online instead of going out. And so we did see a bump in cargo activity as a result of COVID. The past couple of years, we've seen a slight decline. It's starting to trend back up now, but COVID caused an increase in our cargo in total cargo activity.
It just feels like Amazon and post-COVID that Amazon deliveries are everywhere.
Oh yeah.
It's got to get here somehow.
All right, next slide. Are you familiar with PFAS at all and any of the issues as it relates to the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances?
Only
Slightly.
very minimal.
Well, we have our own. Harrisburg International is a former Air Force base, and because of that, it was totally self-sufficient. So we have our own water processing facility, our own water treatment plant, and our own sewage treatment plants. That's all part of our operation. But in 2014, the water company who we were selling water to, I can't remember the name of the company at the time, but they found PFAS, which this is for this forever chemical in the water that we were selling to them. So we had to react immediately and kind of figure out what this thing was and how are we going to respond to it. What we've done since 2014 is work kind of incrementally toward a solution. We started small with at one of our wells, one of our producing wells, with a filtration system to see if that could filter out the chemical, the forever chemical called PFAS, which is now becoming much more regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, the federal agency, not DEP. So we were able to determine with that test location that the filtration system worked. So then we moved into a more robust filtration program to kind of test more of our well system to see if it would continue to be effective, and it was. So then we finally decided and had designed a full changeover or rehabilitation of our water plant to include this granulated activated charcoal filtration system. So now we have 4 big tanks with this charcoal filtration that the water runs through, and it kind of filters out this forever chemical. And now we're showing non-detect in the water we're producing. And our last samples, which were January of this year, again, it just showed non-detect. So we've been able to filter our water to the point where you cannot detect this chemical. And what is it, 70 parts per trillion? It's a very, very, very small amount that they're able to detect. And we've been able to filter that out. So we're very proud of that. We spent a lot of money, and we also were fortunate working with the state of Pennsylvania and the the Penvest program. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
But the airport authority was awarded a $6.7 million no payback loan. So it's basically a grant for this water treatment plant upgrade. And we're just in the final stages of finishing that project. And because we were able to get that $6.7 million grant from the Penvest program. So we were very fortunate that was available to us.
Tim, I'm just going to pause you there and ask if my colleagues online have any questions they wanted to ask, because this is an unusual thing that you've been managing through. Jean, did you have anything, or?
I just wanted to ask a question about this. Our local emergency planning committee and our firefighters in Cumberland County, as well as statewide, have had to change the chemicals that they fight fires with. And I'm seeing that you're required to have those PFAS for your airport operating certificate. Have you been required to change the makeup of those chemicals?
We have not. As a matter of fact, we're required by regulation, federal aviation regulation, to have and to use when necessary the what's called AFFF, the aqueous film forming foam that contains the PFAS chemicals. The Environmental Protection Agency, working with the Department of Defense, have come up with an alternative. It's called a fluorine-free foam, or F3, and that is now becoming available to airports to use as a substitute for this AFFF. But it remains today that the AFFF is still a regulatory requirement of the FAA. So when they show up and they do their annual inspection, we have to prove that we have the chemical available. That used to be we had to dispense the chemical and they would check the proportion to make sure it was at the right percentage. And they don't allow us to do that anymore. So it's all done kind of internally through an internal proportioning system in the truck. But no, we're still required to use the AFFF. We still have it in all our emergency vehicles, and it is the most effective product for putting out a flammable liquid fire. So in the event that there is an incident and there is a fire, that would be the best product to use. And until the FAA fully endorses an alternative, we'll continue to use the AFFF.
Thank you.
Jean, did you?
I appreciate that explanation. Thanks.
Gary, did you have anything that you wanted to ask at this time?
I did have one or two things. So the first question is a pretty simple one. Does the closure of 3 Mile Island in any way affect you operationally?
No. No, there has been no impact whatsoever on the airport operation.
Okay. Also, now Frontier, you mentioned Frontier is out. They were here before and left as well, and then came back. Correct? And now they're out again. Okay. Yep. Did they cite a reason, low ridership or anything?
Yeah, basically load factors. They claimed that they weren't making money, and our argument was, well, you need to put more service in here. You have to have a pricing power, and to do that, you have to have availability. And 2 to 3 flights a week, less than daily service was not changed. So they decided that they're going to their resources elsewhere. But as you said, they've done this before, so we won't be surprised if they decide at some point in the future that come back. But for right now, they're out.
As an aside on that, was there? I believe it was them, or was it Delta? Somebody wanted to leave a number of years ago, and there was a proposal that the counties fund a contingency fund to essentially subsidize them until they were making sufficient money or something of that nature. But was that resurrected in any way, shape, or form? Because we never heard anything more about that.
I think what you're talking about was the revenue guarantee program that coordinated through Dauphin County and Cumberland County. That was we had received through the Industrial Development Authority, we received a grant from the FAA for air service development that we matched with some the Industrial Development Authority to put in place a fund that would be available in the event, and it was Frontier, in the event that Frontier, once as they added service to Denver, lost money on that route. As it turned out, they never lost money on that route. And we never had to use one penny of the revenue guarantee fund that was established. But in order to get them in the market, we had to show that we had a commitment from the community that if they put the service in here, that we would support it, and that's exactly what happened. And that fund was never the revenue guarantee was never ever needed. So the route was successful. It was seasonal, and it came back again, I think, the following season. But there's always been problems with aircraft utilization and getting enough aircraft. And we always hear, well, once we get more airplanes, we'll give you guys some serious consideration. That hasn't happened, but that's what that was. That was a revenue guarantee fund. I think it goes back to 2012.
Boeing's current situation is producing apparently a shortage of aircraft. I'm sure that's not helping matters in terms of adding capacity. So, but on that issue, so Allegiant, were they given incentives to come in, and have they asked for any incentives since? And is there any prospect that Frontier's departure will be picked up by Allegiant, or are they going to make any asks from you?
Allegiant already flies to Orlando, so they the schedule occasionally, depending on the time of year and where they see strength in the market. But the first part of the question was, can you repeat that again? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
In regard to the question was, since Frontier was looking, essentially they had to be incentivized. My question was, was Allegiant initially incentivized, and do we see Allegiant perhaps picking up some of the capacity that Frontier originally carried, even though they didn't fly much?
Yeah, no, I apologize. I slipped on the first part of that question. We have an incentive program. The Airport Authority has an incentive program that applies to every airline. So when any airline comes in to provide service, we will not charge them landing fees. We'll provide some marketing money to help get the route off the ground. Basically, the first year we won't charge them fees. So we won't charge terminal building rents. We don't charge landing fees.
Wow.
Basically, they can operate out of the airport without that cost. Now, the second year, the landing fees kick in. The third year, the terminal building rents kick in. This applies to any airline who adds service to a new destination. So American, even though we have American, and they're a legacy carrier, they've been there for decades. If they came in and said, we Miami, this incentive would apply to for that one route for the term mentioned. So the first year there'd be no cost to them, other than their fuel and so forth. And then the second year, we bump that up a little bit. In the third year, by the third year, they're paying the full amount that everyone else is paying. Yeah. So it's either for an airline adding service destination or a new airline coming in that currently does not serve Harrisburg. So that incentive applies to everyone.
Okay, so you basically phase in the total cost, gives them an opportunity to test the market.
Yes.
And how long a commitment are they required to make when they come in to a new market?
Oh, they do sign an airline operating agreement, and the term on that varies. I think we're reaching the last year on our airline operating agreement. There are extension options, but airlines are highly mobile. So I mean, even if with an operating agreement, if they determine that this particular market is not profitable for them, they will leave. You know, they'll give us 30 days notice, 60 days notice, whatever, and they're out the door. So there's not a lot of long-term commitment. You know, we like to think there is, but you know, they can pick up and go anytime.
I've used the Allegiant service many times. It's very, very good. It's, you know, very convenient and seems nicely done. So kudos on that. Are there any other efforts to attract low-cost carriers, or do you feel you've met the threshold for that?
No, we're working on that all the time. Our marketing deputy director for marketing and business development, Scott Miller, is constantly working with the airlines. And the airlines that likely would serve this market. Now we're meeting next week in DC, Washington DC, with American, United, Delta, but also with JetBlue and Southwest Airlines for just a regular. They call it a speed dating. So you meet with the airlines for 20 minutes at their table in this big gymnasium kind of thing, and we get to make our pitch to them as to why they should be serving this market. And and we do that every year. We do that a couple times a year. There's this Jumpstart program, our Jumpstart conference, which is next week, and there's a routes conference as well. It's kind of the same thing, a little bit bigger. So, and in addition to that, we maintain a regular communication and outreach with our airline partners. We have a meeting coming up with Allegiant. They do a meeting for their airports every year. It's in Las Vegas, which is their base of operations. We'll be down there talking to them in August or September, I think it is this year. But yeah, that's a regular activity for the airport administration. And all airports do it, by the way. So, I mean, it's a very competitive business.
But that's an interesting process to observe. Tim, how long have you been in that role?
I've been the executive director since 2006.
Wow. Okay, I knew it had been a while. And Scott's been with you a long time as well.
Scott started in September 10th, 2001, so the day before 9/11. And he's the marketing guy, or he's so he's our public relations. So he was you know, right away thrown into the madness that was 9/11. So he's been there a little bit longer than I have. I actually started in 2003 and was promoted to executive director in 2006.
Great. Well, you guys have obviously proven yourselves. I see great improvement with the operation there. So the only other question I had is kind of peripheral, but I know we went through an episode a number of years back where there was a request to participate in a eminent domain against Kramer, which, you know, to the Board of Commissioners in Cumberland at that time just seemed like, you know, buying out the competition or eliminating the competition. We refused to support that. And that ultimately, as I understand, Kramer's still there. Are they still privately held?
Yes, they are. And yeah, we took kind of we got a bloody nose on that one back in 2004, I think it was 2005. They still run the parking operation, although it hasn't been a real factor for us as it relates to our own parking operation. They've expanded since the original Kramer, Mr. Kramer, passed away. The son now, Solomon, and he's more focused on his the car rental business, his auto sale. He's got an auto body shop. He's installing an EV charging station across the street from his operation. So he's got a whole different set of strategic business development plans for the Kramer operation, other than just parking.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, that's thank you for your answers. That's all I really had.
So just to revisit this PFAS, so it sounds like you're eliminating that from the water, the water that you're treating.
Yeah.
But is it identifiable through the groundwater as to where it's coming from?
Well, getting back to the firefighting foam, and in our case, that's the likely source.
Okay,
Because it is a part of the chemical makeup of the firefighting foam. And so we believe that's how we became impacted. But it's in many other products. It's in nonstick cooking products. It's in many medical products. Paper that they wrap hamburgers in at McDonald's had that chemical. So it's pervasive. It's
flame retardant fabric, dental floss.
Yeah.
So it's in a lot of manufactured stuff. One of the key issues was just until about 2010-ish, there was no technology to test 2 parts per trillion. So it was there, but no one knew. You couldn't see it, you couldn't find it. So now it's found, but we still have to use it for firefighting. It's a mil-spec firefighting foam, and there is no alternative to that yet.
Yeah, and then there are a couple that have just been certified, but that's just recent. Yeah.
Was the last question I have on this, was the Penvest funding adequate to do
Yes.
all that was necessary for the full project?
Yeah, there may be a little bit of a balance as well. So we were able to use that fund, and that was enough. That was enough funding to support to complete the project.
Okay, very good. So I don't mean to have thrown you off track,
Oh,
but I
no,
just
no,
like to do
well, that's fine.
that.
I appreciate
Thank
the
you.
questions. That's why we're here. Get this to move forward. One of the projects that our most significant project right now is, as it relates to economic development and our strategic plan in the future of the airport, is the expansion of the cargo apron. We call it our cargo complex, because it includes both airside, which is where the aircraft operate and park, and taxi, and so forth, and the land side, which is on the other side of the fence, where the sortation facilities are located and the trucks come and go and so forth. So we're in the middle right now of a $64 million expansion project, the air cargo complex project, that is, it actually has 3 construction phases. We're in the second phase of construction, with the third phase scheduled to begin next year, and that should be the last phase. So we're expecting by October, November of 2025, this project will be done from an airside portion of it. So we're going to see an increase of capacity by 30% in ramp capacity to park large cargo type aircraft. And we're also working with a planner to put together a concept for the landside property that we have that'll interact with the airside in a way that kind of improves the cargo operation. So that's our most significant project right now. We've done a lot of work. I don't know if you've been to the airport lately, but we've done a lot of work on Airport Drive. That was all redone. We've taken down 2 old Air Force buildings that were kind of abandoned and were no longer used or necessary. So they're gone. We've rerouted the access to the cargo facility with that roundabout that you see on the lower right-hand side. So it's a very significant project. We expect once it's done and we see additional cargo activity, we're looking at 300 new permanent jobs to support that operation. So we're very happy with that, and construction is going well.
So the $64 million project, of which you've gotten 22 million in federal, state, and local committed, do you do bonds for the?
No, it'll come from the FAA.
Okay.
The FAA, well, the federal government provided some additional funding outside of the airport improvement program as part of the COVID relief program.
Okay.
So there was CARES, there was CURSA, there was ARPA, all which resulted in airports getting money for additional infrastructure work, and so we're putting some of that money into this as well.
Okay, very good.
All right, I mentioned the general aviation airports. Again, we have 3: Capital City Executive Airport, which is in Fairview Township. That was acquired as part of when the Airport Authority was organized in 1998. It's got about 25,000 operations. it's a reliever airport for Harrisburg International. We do have the air traffic control. It's a contract tower program. It kind of interacts with Harrisburg International and keeping airplanes away from each other in that confined space. We have a couple of flight schools there, corporate aviation, and it's the airport of choice for several state agencies, including the governor's office, Pennsylvania State Police, and the Office of the Attorney General. So they keep their aircraft there as well.
And apparently the governor likes it a whole lot.
Yeah, it depends. We had a governor that didn't like it, right?
Right.
Dell was not a flyer. So I don't think he ever used it, but he was governor. Gettysburg Regional Airport was actually something we acquired in 2006. It wasn't part of the original makeup of the airport authority. It's a small general aviation airport in Adams County, and it was privately owned. The owner of the airport was interested in selling the airport, the property, to a residential development. And the FAA kind of stepped in and came to us, said, if Sarah will act as the airport sponsor, we'll pay to acquire the airport from this private owner. And then you guys will have it. We'll support you with federal funding for infrastructure development, and we agreed. So they provided the funding, and we agreed to take it under our wing, I guess, as part of the airport authority. That goes back to 2006, and it's worked out well. I mean, we've made a lot of improvements. We've made a huge investment in that airport, including a new runway, new ramps, hangars going up everywhere. So it's becoming quite an active facility. Same thing with Franklin County Regional Airport, which is in Green Township. That was acquired by the Airport Authority in 2004. A little bit different reason. The township basically wanted to get out of the airport business, and they let their grant assurances expire. So, when you take a grant, you're guaranteeing that you're assuring them that you're going to maintain the property and so forth for a certain amount of time. They let their grant assurances expire. And again, the FAA came to us and said, if you guys are willing to take on this airport as part of your authority, we'll provide the funding to acquire it, to purchase it from the township, and we'll give you funding for infrastructure development and capital programs and so forth. So they've done that, and that's worked out well too. We've also rebuilt the runway there. We've added taxiways. We've added ramp. And we just there's a fuel farm going in right now, and maintenance activity. There used to be a jump school there, so a lot of activity going on at both Gettysburg and Franklin County.
The FAA sounds like it's a bit forward thinking as it relates to preserving these.
Yes, they didn't want to lose the aviation asset. So
Yeah.
Absolutely, they saw that Gettysburg was the only airport in Adams County. And they didn't want to lose that aviation asset. So they really needed a sponsor. They couldn't do it. So they came to us and said, "Hey, are you guys willing to do this?" And the board agreed. So here we are. We have 4 airports. I think that's it. So I appreciate
So are
your
you
time.
done, or are you looking for more airports?
No, I think we're done.
We're done.
Yes.
It's interesting, if you're given an airport or you purchase an airport like Gettysburg or Franklin County, and for whatever reason it doesn't work out, if you try and sell it, you have to pay the FAA back for everything it's giving you effectively.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
very difficult to dispose of a facility once you take that facility under your wings.
Yeah, it's called the grant assurance.
Yeah.
So you're saying, yeah, we're gonna maintain it, we're gonna operate it, it's gonna be an airport. One thing we need to add to the slide deck is we have an air show plan. We have an air show plan for next year, Memorial Day weekend of 2025, so
Okay.
about a year from now. And we've secured a commitment from the Blue Angels. So they're going to be here. I forget the dates, May 24, 25, or whatever it is in 2025. And we're working on that now. So that's we're working with the producer and getting the acts together and so forth, figuring out how we're going to park and where things are going to go. But that's going to be a pretty exciting event for Harrisburg and for the region, actually. And they're looking at doing this on an annual basis. So we'll see how that
24,
works.
25, 26.
24, 25, okay, so May of
Yeah, next year.
2025, yeah.
Okay.
So that's something we're working on and looking forward to. That's going to be a big event.
The only other question that I would have of this group is, I've become more aware of Allentown's airport. I think they may have expanded a bit, and Lancaster having more air availability and flights and those sorts of things. Is that generally additive to your business when there's more happening within the state, or is it just competition?
Well, I think competition's a good thing, but in the case of Lancaster, they've just announced service on Breeze, which will begin in October to, I guess it's Orlando. It's going to be less than daily service, kind of like Frontier was. The advantage they have is that they basically do not have any debt. We do. So we have the cost to operate out of Harrisburg or with the airport authority are much higher than they are out of Lancaster. And an airline like Breeze, they're just looking for everything for free. So we can't give them everything for free. We can as an incentive for a couple of years, but they were looking for longer term. So they went to Lancaster where they can get.
Lancaster also gets EAS money too.
Yes.
Well, they get EAS money, but we have to kind of.
Lancaster had the only air service to Pittsburgh, Central PA,
Yeah.
on a -8, which is about an 8 to 10 passenger rattle trap, for lack of a better term. And they get that because they're funded by the FAA, by the federal government to do that. They looked at doing us. They were going to go Lancaster, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh. That didn't happen for a very long period. It's just not a good thing. But Lancaster, again, to Tim's point, doesn't have debt service like we do.
Yeah.
The other item with Lehigh has had adjacent hundreds of acres of ground that were acquired by Amazon to put in a distribution facility. And there's a lot of aircraft and movement coming in and out of that airport. So it's really both all for Amazon, among others. So it really has moved the needle on their operations, mostly because of the adjacent industrial operation right there.
But to Eric's point, we are hindered by, we can't go in one direction because we have the river. We have the railroad tracks and Route 230 on the other side. We've got Middletown on the far side, and we run on the north side because of the Rice Bar. So we are bound by the land we have is all we really have to do things with.
We're nominally 650 acres, give or take. Indianapolis Airport, just for comparative, is 6,000 acres.
Okay.
So this is a very constrained space.
And we've made good choices with the land that is not adjacent. We have a land across Route 230, what we call the North 29. We've put sheets in there, enterprise rental cars in there, and what am I missing? And we put a hotel on our own site.
Yeah.
Right across there. So we've done what we can to maximize our investment where we could, where it was land side rather than air side, and where the airplanes could never touch that property, that portion of the property.
And to answer your question, Allentown's really not a competitor for our two competitors are Baltimore and Philadelphia. So we lose a lot of our market to down driving up Baltimore to get on Southwest or over to Philadelphia for the just hundreds of options out of Philly. So those are our two biggest competitors.
Thank you. Jean, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I know that, my first term, as soon as I got here, 3 months later, we had full-blown COVID, and I would really like to come out and take a tour of HIA. And I have a feeling maybe my colleagues would like to do that too. I'd really like to see those operations. It's such a cool place, and I enjoy flying in and out of HIA. So if we can arrange that, that would be great.
At that airport, I just had a whole group of commercial real estate brokers through there a month ago, and they came away with a big wow, because we took them to the main facility, we took them to the tower, we took them down to about a month before that, 2 months before that, we had them to Air National Guard. So you would be absolutely amazed if you had a chance to go through there, and we can arrange that.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Working with your representatives.
Perfect. Gary, did you have else you wanted to add?
Just one or two quick things. So Jim mentioned, touched on Air National Guard presence there. Do we have any insights into how stable that might be, or, and how much room do they take up there for you?
They take up about I want to say 40, 50 acres of land over by the cargo side of the airport. They don't have any plans for expansion. I think their presence is fairly secure. I know we just signed a long-term lease with them. They're a special operations force, so they have a unique mission. And I think, as I said, it's fairly secure. Of course, nothing's guaranteed and that could change, but I think they'll be there for a while longer.
Okay. I'll second the request on the tour. I've been around long enough. I was lucky to see that not long after the new terminal opened. And I will say it was super impressive, especially the pump room that keeps the water, out of what it normally would flow right into where a lot of your facilities are. And the luggage and baggage sorting was really pretty impressive too. So, I mean, those kind of behind the scenes things are very impressive.
Pretty impressive.
We're upgrading that baggage handling system now. It's 20 years old and the technology was no longer to replace was no longer available. So we did get a $6 million grant from the as part of the infrastructure program and that money to upgrade the baggage handling systems.
Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it. And safe travels to wherever you're headed to from here.
Back to my own.
It will be by auto, not air.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right. Mary, next up, we have our update from the Cumberland County Housing and Redevelopment Authority.
Right, no presentation today. I'll just go over some things. Oh, great. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right. So it's just an update on the housing and redevelopment authorities. So basically, I have now been there going on 3.5 years. And it's flown by. But some things now we're at a really good position as authorities where we're starting to actually focus on being proactive. I think for a long time, the authorities were very reactive, and that was just the nature of the organization. Truthfully, we had some very antiquated systems. So what I've focused on internally has been efficiency. We're trying to be effective, modernize, and honestly investing in our people and our places. So part of that has been, how do I really focus the agency? Redevelopment authorities have a very specific purpose. So do housing authorities. We have gone back to that. So for example, we have actually right-sized our staff, right-sized the operation. There were some things I think we were involved with that were honestly distractions. They sort of pull you away from the main mission. So for example, looking even at positions. When I started, we had 67 employees. We are now down to 53 and operating actually more efficiently with those 53. And they are phenomenal staff, and I will give them so much credit. So part of that has been looking at everything and investing in that. And I will give credit to the staff. We've upgraded all of our systems. Our finance office is going through a huge upgrade. Right now, we even have a BDO, which is a national accounting firm that specializes in housing authority, on site, doing some work with our office to get things even more modernized. So it has been a huge, tremendous improvement. But part of this focus on being proactive for particularly the housing authority, I have to thank the commissioners and your staff. We actually are repurposing some of the emergency rental assistance money that the county has. That will be going to put new roofs on public housing. We'll also be taking some additional funds and using that to do some major improvements on the public housing side and maybe in some other areas. And we're looking at our programs and how they relate. So one of the things that we've sort of, it's been just operate as just every day, the same thing over and over. And so now we're really taking a hard look one of the areas we do provide housing for people who have who are chronically homeless and have disabilities. One thing we're looking at with that program is a quality over quantity. So the idea is, well, maybe it is a matter of quality. Our job is to help people get from point A to point B. So we are really focused on that. They have case managers who are now much more dedicated in working with individuals, and our job is to try and get you moving on or stable in your living conditions. So we are focused a little bit more on that. On the redevelopment authority side, what we're working on is the county will be going through a consolidated planning process. I have to thank the Planning Commission has awarded us $10,000 from their grant program. We were also given $16,000 of Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars to put towards that plan. It's a 5-year plan required by HUD. That plan is a lot of community outreach, surveying, and essentially what will happen is that plan will dictate the county's housing needs. So we contract with Michael Baker. They'll be doing this consolidated plan for us. My hope is to actually leverage that plan more effectively. So in fact, Kirk Stoner is going to be using a lot of the data from it for the county's comprehensive plan, but that plan will help dictate what the county invests in further with housing. I think it will also allow us to determine when a project really does make sense for us as a government agency to step in and invest in, when it doesn't. But the hope is that we can leverage that a bit more moving forward. So that planning process is going to start. We had our kickoff meeting with Michael Baker. You'll start to see invites for, they'll do some focus groups. They'll do a lot of community surveying and outreach along the lines for the next year, but that's due next year to HUD in May. So we'll be working through that. And then in addition to that, we are working on some upgrades to our CDBG and home funds. We just received notice. I know Jean had a constituent asking, HUD officially released today after many weeks of saying the end of the week. They did announce the CDBG and home awards for municipalities and for counties. So the county did receive about $2,000 more than they did last year in CDBG money. That's just the constraint of the budget, but we were lucky to receive a little bit more. So it runs about 1.2 million in CDBG funding. So we'll be providing the commissioners with the plan and recommendations within the coming weeks of who will be funded. It's really more going to be a matter of taking that money and figuring out how much we can allocate to each project now that we have a number and meeting those limits. Home money, the county actually received less, but everyone, I believe, received less. That was one of the programs that did get substantially cut federally. So my hope is that in looking at this consolidated plan, we will actually be able to leverage those dollars a bit better. Generally, we only receive about $500,000 as a county. That money is really, really important when it comes to creating affordable housing. Unfortunately, there's a very finite amount. So we're hoping that maybe through this planning process with the consolidated plan, we might be able to stretch that money further. A lot of times it just goes to a single developer in a tax credit project. My hope would be that we could maybe, depending on what the general feel from the plan is that we might be able to stretch that into other areas. And one of the big areas we're going to focus on is that first-time homebuyer world. So we do have a housing counselor on staff, officially certified by HUD, trained. She's starting her first-time homebuyer classes next week. We are also going to have her do housing counseling for anyone who's reaching out and look to expand that. She's heavily involved with PHFA to make this work. I'm going to pull together a little committee to discuss another option for our first-time home buyers. We are going to look at some employer-assisted housing options, so maybe having them partner with us. So that's something we're going to flesh out. On June 24th and 25th, we actually partnered with Pannoni to offer a free 8-hour certification to anyone. So it could be an individual looking for work, a contractor who needs someone certified, but that will be, you will become essentially EPA-led certified. So that designation is good for 5 years. So one free 8-hour class for 5 years, you are covered. So it is for lead abatement, identification. So any contractor, but we're hoping to reach out to our local contractors who right now work with the owner occupied rehab program. They just need to send one staff member, and then they are certified to remove lead, identify lead. So that way they have an opportunity to bid on a lot of the work that ends up being HUD funded, because part of that is we have to make sure there's no lead at the property. So we are working through that. In addition to that, we will actually be doing a strategic planning process. So the authority, I think, has never really contracted out to do a true strategic plan. Now, being in a position where we can be proactive, we will be starting that in the late November, early December area. I will be out for a few months, so the hope is that when I get back, we'll start that, but we've started to reach out, and it will help us identify where the authority is going. So that's really the update, and I will keep you all in the loop, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. But we're finally at a position where we can do a bit more.
Well, and Mary, just as a follow-up, I do have a couple of questions. So when you were talking about maybe quality over quantity, and specifically talking about transitioning people from homelessness to stabilizing some housing for them, are you seeing uptick in numbers of homeless, or is there any trend that you're just, even if it's kind of just in a gut response right now, that you're seeing for the county that we need to be very mindful of too?
It seems the number stays pretty consistent day to day. There's some upticks. We somehow put around 231 individuals, 230 individuals seems to be kind of the flux at any given time that are identified in the HMIS, the coordinated entry system. Now that fluctuates. Then the question becomes, of those individuals, how do you house them? Who's eligible? I'll give you an example. We had a staff member start, and she said she thought our permanent supportive housing, so the program that requires a person to be chronically homeless and also have some sort of disability, she thought it was much larger than what it was. And to be honest with you, because we were only able to house around 40, 50 any given time. And she was surprised. And it's not a huge dent, but funding wise, it's very hard to house. So you think about those individuals, and we're paying their full rent in perpetuity. So it's a very expensive endeavor in providing them case management. So we're trying to see if there's a way that as we work with these individuals, we can maybe move them on to the voucher program. But it's that constant, the funding is always finite. So we're looking, where can we make the biggest impact? And so as a county, we see the homeless position, at least from the authorities, it is a very challenging place for us to fill. I will say I'm very grateful to the nonprofits that are able to cover where we can.
So it feels like there's more units going to be available for housing, affordably housing some of those folks that are transitioning from maybe in home insecurity, maybe not outright homelessness, but maybe some insecurity with some of these projects. But you're saying even with new projects coming online, the number stays roughly the same?
Yes, it is very, very challenging. The inventory has not kept up with it, and there is all different types of housing that's needed. So the issue that I see that we as an authority don't necessarily touch, it's vast, is the housing model is right now, the proper projects coming online are those single family, the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom apartments. There are a number of people who are in need of a different type of housing situation. So I've had individuals talk to us about specific housing for people who have autism or people who are unable to live by themselves. So how do you have that type of cooperative housing and shared housing? There's all different models. And unfortunately, it's so broad that just those type of housing options don't exist as readily as they're needed. So it's really a case by case sort of situation where we have things coming online, but those things might not fit everyone, and we have a whole population that's not necessarily being met. So it's a bit more challenging to identify that and then pull in the funding to try and make that happen.
So, and then thank you, and when you reference like 230 people, is that families or individuals?
I would say households.
Households, okay.
We could get the breakdown. That's
just
pretty easy, but yeah, I just say
curious.
households.
Households, okay, thank you. And then as you've been kind of taking a step back and looking at the functionality of the whole organization and the different components, are there any components that you're saying, you know, we don't necessarily need to be in that business? We don't need, or this is an element where maybe someone else could be doing that more efficiently, or that you would be subcontracting with other people to take on different things?
Sure. So I'll say that we did step back from some property management, just because realistically for me, the priority was public housing. We own it, we manage it, let's manage it the most efficiently we can. So we've stepped back from being the property manager for other agents, for other organizations. The other area that I've stepped back from has been actually doing business lending. So we stepped out of that role. We were doing some small business lending. I think at the time through CDBG money, it seemed a little redundant. I'm not one I like efficiency. So CADIC received the same funding to do the same thing. So it didn't make a lot of sense to do the same thing. Where you can make things efficient, you will. So the idea was, okay, let's sunset that program and let's focus on the physical structures of buildings. So now the authority is going to we have a street view program, which is a facade grant. Let's take that facade program, and maybe what we do is expand it to be a grant loan combo for the physical building. So let's stick to what redevelopment authorities do, which is building structures, demolition. We'll focus on that instead of maybe funding someone to acquire a business or buy materials for their kitchen and their restaurant. So we've stepped out of that world, at least, right? We've just stepped out of that world.
Okay. Has that led to some of the attrition in staff, that they were more focused on those areas, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Some of it just has become really looking at the processes. When you start to look at operations, you see where you could start to combine some roles and you bring the right people in. And I'm a big advocate on training also, I will say, and training means sometimes taking your time. A lot of times I'm there, I answer questions, and I believe you sometimes have to just sit with your staff and give them the right training and the right tools and go from there. And I have a great director level set of individuals who believe that too. So everybody's trained up, and that way when they're ready to take on more responsibility, we give them it and work with them.
I'll go around the clock for my colleagues as well. Jean, did you have any questions you had wanted to ask at this time?
I do not, and I'll see you tomorrow at noon, Mary. So
Gary, did you have any questions of Mary that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, just briefly, and Mary, I know you've mentioned for a while about refocusing the organization, and I like what I'm hearing on that. And you mentioned a few things today that I'm not sure I had heard before, and in relation to things that CADIC is involved in as well. So my only question on that is, now some of the items that you said you folks are backing away from, I was perhaps mistakenly under the impression that CDBG covers some of those things. So you are still administering all of the CDBG monies, is that right?
We do. So CADIC is a recipient of CDBG money, and I believe the authority was receiving CDBG money to basically do what I think was redundant.
Okay. All right. Well, I applaud all that. I was just curious because I know in Dauphin County, they sort of reinvigorated their Dauphin County Economic Development Office, and they actually administer CDBG out of that office. Believe me, I understand all counties are structured differently because they've got different situations. I'm not saying that's the right way, but I was just curious if CDBG was shifting in any meaningful way It sounds like you've just kind of accommodated a meaningful role for Katie where it's appropriate, and you were still maintaining the vast majority, well, the absolute control over CDBG. It's just they will have a piece of it.
Yes, as a recipient. So like any other county agency or nonprofit, they apply. We even started doing on our end, if we want to do a CDBG program, we put an application in ourselves. So I'll put one in and it's evaluated at the staff level and then proceeds up to the commissioners and for the public to review. So we're trying to make it clear across the board. But yes, we administer for all agencies, and KADE's one of those agencies that does apply for funding when they need it.
Got it. Okay. That's great. Thank you. That's really all I had.
And then, Mary, the one thing I know, I commend you, I believe you had to institute some financial, like you said, some financial accounting that may not have existed before that hopefully will be very beneficial to you. I was served on one of your committees for a number of years, so I appreciate that effort. No, it's difficult. From time to time, we do get, some, I don't want to call them complaints, but we will get some complaints on service. And so I know it's a difficult thing because of what you're tasked with doing and all of that. And perhaps a customer base that may be a little bit challenging at different times to communicate with because they may not be where they were the last time you reached them. So in your upgrade to systems, have you been able to institute some really, some better maybe ways to engage with those customers or tracking of those customers?
The tracking piece is hard. So the problem we run into, and the one thing that keeps coming up is the mail system. So the only way to keep in touch with people is through the mail. It's really the only standard way that we can track that someone is not being discriminated against in the line to receive, let's say, a voucher or public housing notification, because you could still do the workaround with emails, phone numbers. So you're sort of stuck to this one methodology. Now, the methodology works for the other 2,000 people that receive notices from us. We do have the one or two that end up having a bit of an issue. So what I would say, and what we stress is we tell them ad nauseum, please let us know when your address changes. Please, the mail remains the only standard way that we can track that you have received something or that it's been sent and that we followed our process. We do try to explain that to people. Unfortunately, you do get moments from time to time where a person feels like they may have missed something or they feel slighted. I would say to anyone, HUD has a very good complaint system. I would absolutely tell everybody, and maybe I'm setting myself up for it, but in the long run, honestly, HUD has on their website, and we have it listed, but I'd stress, and I think I've sent it to the commissioner's office staff, please feel free to have somebody report if they feel slighted, report directly to HUD. We get information immediately. We have a HUD rep. That HUD rep gets in touch with us. They'll do an investigation. If there's no finding on their end, what they'll do is let that person know. And we've not had any significant issues, if any, since my start. So as long as we're following that process, HUD remains pretty content with it. So, and any complaint is taken seriously, and we do track in all those systems. That is a big thing, and that is why we have so many systems in place to track. But there is some upgrades. One of the things we actually are looking at now with this new finance technology and some of the other programs is actually being able to do more with ACH transfers and actually more with being able to take online payments for our residents in some of our housing units. The reality is actually most people receive, you're receiving already your assistance from the feds through electronic means. Sometimes they would like something set up where they are electronically able to send it to us. We didn't have the proper technology in place to do that. We're going to upgrade to be able to do that and provide those tracking mechanisms to better help our constituents. So we're working through that, but unfortunately, there are still some things until there's a more specified route we're sort of stuck with. We are going to be trying to do some actual outreach with individuals looking to apply. So we just invested in some portable printers and scanners, and what we'll be doing is we have tablets. We'll try to go out to different areas. We have support service staff floating around the county and maybe doing on-site applications with individuals where we can get their initial application put in, maybe just scan their documents in a secure way quickly so that we have them, and that way we can do applications on site throughout the county and try to work with some nonprofits on that front, be a little bit more mobile where we're not taking their documents anywhere, they can keep them. So we're in process.
Yeah, and I bring that up particularly to just give you the opportunity to walk me through what I should recommend as well. And I know you can't create housing that doesn't exist for people when they need it, and when, and I know that there are wait lists as well. So I'm sure it's very challenging navigating getting people what they want and need and making those matches. And I'm sure that's very difficult.
It is, and I'll say that there are clients that have said, they are so diligent and so engaged, and they want to get housing. And the reality is every person is given the same opportunity to reply to us, the same 10 days or 14 days, depending on what the request is. We're trying to streamline some of that when it comes down to even making sure other agencies know, but it's the same. So you're just constantly waiting. We have systems where it will, note the person has been notified, it's hit day 14, so you can move to the next person. And so that's what we do have the systems in place. It's just trying to educate people more on, please respond, be patient. It's unfortunate.
A big juggling act, I don't doubt it. Thank you. Gary or Jean, anything more?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
All right.
I think that's it then. Thank you
All
so
right,
much,
thank you,
Mary.
everyone.
Thank you for coming in. You appreciate it. Now that Mary is wrapped up, I'll ask if there's any other business to come before the board at this time. If there's none, then I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are adjourned.
Thanks.